this is a series of basically 6 topics which we are planning. And we thought as a professional, it is very, very important for us to know all the aspects of this impact, which is, very big to all of us as a professional, and which needs a holistic approach to any to solve any problem. So with us today is Vineet. Vineet is a seasoned professional in indirect tax, and he has done GST practice for quite a long. And he has worked with Big Fours, and now he's doing his own practice on the GST related matters. So he will take up this session for today because a lot of notifications have come in, a lot of relief has government has given, and the more notifications give rise to more confusions and more questions. So we will talk about all these things during the session. My request to everyone is that since it's a wide topic and we want to answer each and every question, but let's keep our topics restricted to the topics which we keep your questions restricted to the topics which we are discussing, so that we can answer that. And all the questions, please keep on putting in the chat box. Okay, so Vineet, once he's finished his discussion, he will try to answer all the questions possible, and if not, then we will revert to you on the questions by sharing a email ID. So with that introduction, I would hand over the proceedings to Vineet. Vineet, over to you. Welcome, and thanks a lot for taking out time to take this session.
Thanks, Piyush. Thank you so much. Afternoon, all. As Piyush mentioned, yes, looking to current COVID-19 situation, the GST Council meeting which happened before lockdown, which on 14th March, and the press conference of Honorable Finance Minister, which happened on 24th March, the both has created in multiple changes. And accordingly, they issued around 32 notifications and 5 circulars only in CGST and IGST. You can just replicate for the all states and UTGST accordingly. So today we are going to discuss, starting with the what are key recommendation, whether any changes in the GST compliance has been done, or just only a eyewash for the people to understand. What are the key changes under CGST rules relevant for the credit refunds? We discussed the director generation. 2 weeks back, the ruling came, and first time I have seen where the clients were sharing the news with me, showing their concern. What will happen to all their remuneration with their paying to director, will live or not? So last meeting of GST Council, which happened on 14th March, they have discussed on the inverted duty structure for specific sectors. They have also discussed whether any change in the dates for specific aspect and add-on compliance, which they would like people to know when they are doing the day-to-day compliance. Starting with the mobile industry, which was expecting that the rate should be rationalized for them, as currently they were before change in rate, were under inverted duty structure. It means rate on input is higher than the output. So they were expecting they will reduce the rate. Instead of that, the government has increased the rate from 12 to 18. Just imagine, it's a 50% change in the rate for a product. And nowadays, mobile is a common accessory or product in everyone's hand. Instead of giving the benefit to industry, yes, it has impacted the industry in a negative way. On another aspect where they made changes on the matches, it's a very general product. It's mostly to avoid any differentiate between the handmade or machine made. The major benefit they given on to the aviation sector, which even they need now, looking to COVID-19 situation. The MRO services, the maintenance, repair, and overall services, where India is looking to become a global player, same like a Singapore, Dubai, and Hong Kong. They have reduced the rate from 18% drastically to 5%. And this rate is with input tax credit. So it means the rate has been reduced They can use their credit, and accordingly, India could be a global hub for this sector. Now we discover other change. As we see, it's very common in GST, the day the GST have been introduced. We always see a new date which come, but was today is the last date. At 11:55, they will say the date has been extended. Same way, on 14th March, this decided that e-invoicing, QR code, and new return just planned to come from 1st April. And most of the company who are using the various ERP like SAP, Oracle, they've started implementing it. But in the last minute, they've shifted the date. Now plan is to have this thing from October. However, looking to current situation, we can expect it may go to next year. They are given specific benefit to B2C segment, covering banking, financial institution, insurance company, a goods transport agency operator, and a passenger transport services. But for that, yet notification needs to be issued. Now I will talk specifically on the interest part. Under Section 50 of CGST Act, you need to pay interest on the liability. Now whether liability should be net liability or gross liability, it's a debate going on from last 2.5 years. Last year, they brought the change under the Act. However, it's not yet effective. And that change was only prospective. So based on the industry representation, they decided to bring this change retrospectively the date when GST came into picture, which is 1st July 2017. Now, if you see the last year, judgment came at Telangana High Court, Madras High Court, Gujarat High Court. Certain decisions were in favor of, certain decisions were against the assessee. The issue in GST is, till you do not file a GSTR 3B, you cannot reflect a credit in your ledger. It's not like your service tax or excise, where whatever credit in books, it's your credit. Credit can reflect to you only when you file the return. If you're not filing the return, for such gap, you need to pay liability. Now, after this relief, the industry is expecting that whatever tax or interest they have paid extra based on gross liability computation, that will be refunded back. And second, this section needs to be implemented by Parliament. It will be retrospective. Yes, industry now can take a position even when they're delaying it now, they will not pay any interest. And one more point they brought is KYS, which is a know your supplier. It's most like a KYC. Let's see how they implement it. Other changes, they want to make Aadhaar as a major document tomorrow for any new registration. You need to authenticate for any new registration through Aadhaar. Otherwise, they will not accept it, or they will do a physical inspection. The most looking policy of e-wallet, where everything, your refund, cash, credit will be in single pocket, was planned to bring from this year, but again they postponed it to next year. Other changes on refunds, which we will discuss in detail when we will discuss on the changes in the rules for refunds and on circular. Now I come to the notifications for extension of dates. So the way the notification has been issued, it has created more confusion, more doubts than giving clarity. So this notification 35, they issued to say any date between 20th March to 29th June, and in which period, if any date is getting expired for any of the above document, whether issued by department or required to file by the taxpayer, it will be deemed to be 30th June. It means if notice would have been issued to you today date, now it may be issued on 30th June. Same way your filing of returns or filing of appeal, if falling in this period, then it will be 30th June. Now, they have given exclusions and inclusions. The exclusion will decide this extension is not applicable. Inclusion will decide it's applicable. Even they have issued one circular on 13th April to clarify the industry position. So any compliance which are doing for a TDS, for ISD, or tax credit source, any filing of refund application, LUT for this year, all these dates has been extended. So for your export, which you are doing it for financial year 2021, you can use your previous year LUT. You no need to wait for your exports pending your LUT. Now, if we see the number of provisions where the extension is not applicable, it means date as usual you need to comply, and if you are not complying, you are liable to penalty and interest. Starting with your time of supply to determine when to pay tax, valuation, if you need to register, if you want to go for a composite scheme, to issue a tax invoice. In GST, even there is a due dates for issuance of invoice. If you are not doing it within dates, you need to pay interest for a balance period. Section 39, furnishing of returns. Except for a TDS, ISD, and NRTP, non-resident taxable persons. Any late fee interest, you can't wait till 30th June. You have to pay now if liable. Power of government to arrest, seizure, penalty, or liability of party. Looking to this section, you will understand that certain dates for returns filing of a regular compliance are not extended, or if extended, based on the conditional waiver, which we'll discuss in next slides. For TDS, TCS, LUT refunds, it has been extended, and accordingly, you can take relief. Now, most of the people are in assumption that dates have been increased or extended. Please note, it is not the case. All the dates are your current due dates. Like yesterday was due date for certain states, tomorrow is a due date for certain states. Now we will discuss on the compliance. We will divide into 3 categories. Category 1, where aggregate taxable turnover is below 1.5. Category 2, where turnover between 1.5 to 5 CR, and category 3 is above 5 CR. For category 1 and 2, no interest and late fee if you comply for 1 and 3B within the extended due date or staggered dates. It means dates are not extended only for avoiding the penalty. Only for conditional waiver of penalty and interest, you can assume it's a staggered date. Otherwise, your dates are still intact as today on today. For category 1 and 2. Now we talk about category 3, which is the most of the companies who are into coming the higher category. Here for GST 1, dates are now 30th June, and you will not have any penalty or late fee if you are filing before 30th June. For 3B, it's completely a complex formula which we need to understand. Being due dates are not extended, if you are filing beyond due dates, you will have a conditional waiver of interest or a lower rate of interest. So law says if due date for April is 20th May, or I will say for March 20th April, so filing by 20th April, no interest. Filing by 5th May, which is 15 days beyond due date, no interest. Beyond 5th May up to 24th June, 9% interest. And beyond 24th June, rate is 18% from the 20th April. To understand this, I will just go on the next slide where we are given illustration. So we have seen the March compliance date is April, 20th April. If you see the first row, if we are filing by 2nd May, no interest. By 20th May, 30 days gap, you have to pay 0 interest for 15 days, and for balance 9%. If 20th June, Zero interest for first 15 days from 20th April, for balance 9%. 24th June, same formula applies, but if you are delayed by 6 days, then you need to pay interest at 18%. It means any gap in your compliance beyond the staggered dates, the rate will be as in the law. Otherwise, you can take the benefit of this. So we can see there is no increase in the extension of due dates. Dates are same. Only for waiver of interest and late fee, it is given. Now today we are in the lockdown 2.0. And the extension of waiver benefit is given only till 15th April, which was one day after the lockdown 1. We were expecting that this date will be further extended. We are waiting for notification, but just as on date, any e-waiver issued from 20th March till 15th April, the due date is extended on till 30th April. We will not go in detail about this composite scheme. Most of all the compliance, starting with intimating to opt for the scheme, with the CMP 02, extended to 30th June, ITC 03, which is reversal of ITC in stock where you cannot take a credit on or before 31st July. Your GST CMP 08, which is quarterly statement, on or before 7 July. And GSTR 4, which is annual return, on or before 15 July. So there is extension given logically in this case only. It's not a conditional waiver, it's an open extension of dates. Now we will discuss specifically one advance ruling which came last week. And as we have seen, always the advance ruling has created a mix of confusion among the industry. We can remember the ruling which came 2 years back on Columbia Hospital from Karnataka state, where there is cross charge of salary between two divisions of the same company should be done and should be liable to GST, which is not correct. Towards it say may, it never say it's a mandation to do it. Now in this ruling, which is given by Rajasthan state, the specific question was the remuneration which I'm paying to whole-time director, whether it's liable to reverse charge mechanism or not. The advance ruling authority have simply advanced ruling authority have specifically told yes, it's liable. Now we need to understand what is reverse charge mechanism and what is forward charge mechanism. So it's a concept which is coming from the pre-GST era, where forward charge means if I am a supplier, then I will charge the tax on my invoice and collect from the customer. Under reverse charge, it's like a purchase tax, where the supplier is not liable, but a recipient who can be a manufacturer or trader or service provider, he needs to pay under reverse charge by determining the rate, HSN code to the exchequer. If they are not paying, then they need to pay with interest. And please note, if my liability or turnover is below 20 lakh, but I have to pay any tax under reverse charge, then I need to still register irrespective of my aggregate turnover. So coming back to ruling, in our view, this ruling is not up to the mark. They did not consider number of facts which are provided by the applicant, and they have just considered notification of reverse charge, and they say it's liable to reverse charge. So we have to see 3 acts here to understand whether liable or not. Income Tax Act, your Companies Act, and GST Act. If you see in Companies Act, they have differentiate between independent director, non-independent director, executive director, non-executive director. They have also given a definition of employee. And specifically definition of employee covers director, except independent director. It means whether a whole-time director or a managing director who are not an independent director, they are employee of the company. If they are employee of the company, the question of levying GST cannot arise, as entry 1 of Schedule 3 specifically covers employer-employee transaction. When the transaction is specifically covered, and whatever remuneration I am paying under the head salary, I am deducting TDS on the head salary, I am deducting the PF and all. So look into all this transaction, it cannot be a services provided by director which are liable under reverse charge mechanism. Even they did not able to differentiate whether my contract with director is on which basis, whether I'm paying him the sitting fee or a commission or service charges or a salary or a profit sharing. Look into all these facts which ruling did not consider and appreciate it. We believe this ruling will not sustain appellate level. And recently, if you see, in the last GST Council, they decided there will be central appellate authority for advanced ruling. We can expect all such vague rulings will have the centralized system to avoid the same and have a consistent judgment irrespective of which state is giving what ruling. And same way like in Columbia Hospital, we are still expecting a clarification from the government. We would like that the government should issue a circular on all such transactions. So tomorrow any ruling should not create a panic in the industry. Now directors are a major board members. If for every remuneration I have to pay the tax, it means I am increasing my tax burden. And we need to understand every company, every industry are still not liable under GST. For the industry which are outside the purview of in the GST, like partial, like banking industry or NBFC, or we can see a seed sector, your oil sector, your land, immovable property. In all this case, it will only increase the cost. So what I will suggest, if anyone operating as a company and having the multiple directors, they should look into every contract and should do a deep dive to understand all these queries. Whether your director is a full-time, whole-time director or independent director. Do you have any contract with him or it's only at the verbal contract with him? What salary he is receiving and what is the periodicity, is it monthly or a quarterly or annual? What declaration you given under the ROC for a particular director? Are you deducting a TDS under 192 or 194J? It will decide whether it's a salary head payout or a service payout. And last but not the least, how the director is participating, whether in the person of employee or in the person of a service provider. All these things needs to be looked into in every contract. And please note, you need to look into it not only from now, you need to look into from retrospectively from 1st July 2017. If liability is coming, you need to pay under reverse charge along with interest and penalty if applicable, otherwise not. So we have discussed about the extension of date or not. We have discussed about the director's remuneration advance ruling, which is created panic in the industry. Now we will discuss about the CGST rules, which were again amended in the month of March. And specifically, we will discuss the points in relation to input tax credit and also on the refunds part. Last year, in the month of October, they have brought a new rule, Rule 36, Sub-Rule 4. If you note, GSTR 2A is postponed. It is not under implementation. Only GSTR 1 and 3B under implementation. But still, the government, to restrict the credit, they brought this rule to say If the matching under GST at 2A is not done, you will be eligible to take only 20%. That 20% cap has been reduced to 10% in this calendar year. Now, in the name of relaxation, the benefit they are providing is for the compliance with this rule from February till month of August for 7 months, you can do in the September month compliance. It means your time. But please note, it's only for a matching. But in case you've taken a full credit, assuming everything will matched, and at the time of filing September return, still certain line items are not matched, you need to pay with interest. I will take an example where you will understand how the weight may go into positive side or negative side based on the number of months you are doing compliance and the number of line items you are matching month on month. If you see a column 1, which you put here as a, here it's a credit based on invoices issued by supplier to you and reflecting in the books. If you see a 2-pointer, it is all the thing which you are matching month on month. If you see a column 3, it is matching in the month of September. You can see today for April, for March I will say, I have done 50, but actually I matched to 100 in the month of April because I will take 4 or 5 months to do it. Now credit which I have taken in the respective month, I have just taken the 0.1 credit, column 1 credit in the column 4 aspect. Now, it all depends on whether your credit is excess or less. It will decide whether liability of interest will come or not. If you see the working, if I see the cumulative credit from February to August is 517, by 470 plus 10%, and 470 is what credit I am taking in the month of September. If I say excess credit, what I've taken and what I should have done it, which is 670 what I've taken month on month, and actually is 570. It means I have taken excess credit of 153. Now let's come to the return of September. In the month of September, we assumed credit is 300, and as per 2A, it's only 200. So I have to see 200 plus 10, which is 220, minus whatever excess credit, 150. It means still I can take 67 rupees credit. But its situation could be reversed also. In that case, interest liability will also come. Now we will discuss on the refunds. In the lockdown era, the expectation was government is going to give relief, where all the pending refunds will be released without having any query raised or notice issued. And even they issued a circular. All the refunds by 30th April should be released. Now certain changes are positive under CGST rule, but certain changes are stopping. So even the implementation of circular, or even the whatever the objective is, 90% refund will be released within a 15 days or 20 days, and balance will be released only once it is reconciled. Now before going in that, we will discuss the rule 96. Under GST, if you want to claim a refund on your export of goods or services, you have a rule 89, which is refund of your accumulated credit, and rule 96 is mainly for the refund with payment of tax. It was also under pre-GST regime as a refund scheme or rebate scheme. For easy understanding, we will say rebate scheme. Rule 96 provide a rebate scheme for export of goods and services. Now they have put a specific restriction for certain taxpayers where they cannot claim rebate under Rule 96. Who they are? They are deemed exporters, merchant exporters, they are EOU, STPI, the DTA units which are claiming advanced license benefit. This Rule 96 Sub Rule 10, I think it has seen the multiple changes. Its agony and the pain for this rule. It was changed multiple in the 2017, 2018 around 5 times, 2019 2 times, and again in this year. So now they want to give relaxation by inserting explanation retrospectively from 23rd October 2017. And please note, on that date, the benefit has been given to EOU and advanced license and EPCG people. Before that, under GST, there was no plan to give benefit to them. The benefit is, if you are falling under respective notification of deemed exporter, merchant exporter, EOU, STPI, advanced license, if you are claiming the benefit only of BCD, basic custom duty, and you are not claiming the benefit of IGST and compensation cess, then it will be deemed that you have not availed the benefit under respective notification. And so you can file a rebate scheme under Rule 96. I will again repeat, if you are paying IGST and compensation cess and availing the benefit only of basic custom duty under respective notification, then it will be assumed you did not fall under Rule 96 Sub Rule 10. So now you can file a rebate scheme under Rule 96. It's a welcome move, and number of people are facing the accumulation of credit, transition credit. This rule will surely help them to encash all such accumulation of credit. Now, if we see the changes which they have brought, other changes in the rules and from circular, they all are anti, or I will say is not pro to the exporters. Start with your Rule 96B. It's a newly inserted rule. So, exporter of goods, today they claim refund or rebate, but does not do any reconciliation of realization of export proceeds. Only on basis of shipping bill, they are getting the refunds. Now, this rule has been amended. From now onwards, any exporter of goods, if he is doing exports, he need to ensure that he is realizing the export proceed within the timeline. If he is not realizing within timeline, then he need to pay back the refund to government along with interest. It's very important change, very small rule, but now every refund will be given to the exporter of goods only when they show a proper realization of export within timeline. Otherwise, they need to pay back to government. Once you realize the export proceeds, then again you can file the refund claim and you will get this money from the government. It means it's a double whammy. Now I need to do additional compliance and look into current situation. Number of payments has been deferred. Even if you see the news on the Monday, where Tata Steel has also deferred the payment to vendors for 45 days. The same situation can be in the other countries who are also suffering from the COVID-19 situation. We expect this rule should be deferred till the situation will come out. Only relaxation they have given is any export till 31st July, the timeline for getting the export proceed increased from 9 months to 15 months. Other change which they have brought it, if I'm changing your rates and you're coming out of an inverted duty structure, but still you have old stock at old rate, you want to sell at new rate, you are not eligible for inverted duty structure, IDS refunds. It means I need to take a hit of whatever excess paid on procurement of my supplies. Another change they brought it is based on their experience. What was happening number of people who are not doing exports, but they have an accumulation of credit. So by erroneously or by intention, they used to pay extra tax by increasing rate or by saying the services provided but not delivered or on order cancelled. In all that case, they will pay through credit and they will ask for refund in cash. So indirectly, they were converting their credit into a cash. Now, government understood this situation and they changed the rule. Now, rule is any refund other than zero rated exports, if you're paid through cash, then you will get in cash. If you are paying through credit, you will get in credit. So you now cannot convert your credit into a cash by any reason. So other changes which they have brought is by a circular and by a RBI guideline. One first point already we discussed, where the timeline had been increased from 9 months to 15 months. The other relaxations are given where I need to file a claim for a particular quarter or a particular month for a particular financial year. If I have to file for a March 20 and April 20, I cannot club it. I have to file two different claims. It means two compliance, two CA certificate and other aspects. Now they are given the relaxation where irrespective of the financial year, irrespective of multiple tax periods, now I can bunch in a single refund claim multiple tax periods in multiple financial years. It's a very good move. It's going to reduce the compliance. It's going to reduce the notice issued for respective claims. Another point which we discussed also, where they want to close all the refunds by 30th April. Yes, they are doing it, but not to the expectation of the industry. Around 40,000 crores of refunds are pending till now. And in Telangana itself, they have released only 1,500 crore and pending is around 5,000 crores. We can assume the nationwide situation where they need to move fast and to release all the amounts of drawback refunds, whether of zero rated, of refund, rebate, other than zero rated, within 30th April, so that people who are facing a working capital crunch can be relaxed. Now this is all about the all good benefits, perks and all. But really, the changes they are given by a circular issued on 3rd April for circular refunds have just created a additional compliance administration burden on refunds. The first point is HSN, Harmonized System of Nomenclature, or a SAC, a Service Accounting Code. It's a global concept. For every type of product or services, it needs to be mentioned. Now, in the GST, they have brought this point here where every transaction should have this codes. For companies having aggregate turnover up to 1.5 crore, they no need to mention. From 1.5 to 5 crore, 2 digit, above 5 is 4 digits. Now, what they want for refunds, based on them, people are claiming the refund even on capital goods, which are not allowed. Now they're putting a burden on the exporters. For every invoice, every input transaction, you need to segregate as the inputs, input services, and capital goods. Irrespective of whether your supplier has mentioned or not, you need to mention an HSN code for every line item. So just see, it has created a situation when today people are not filing their GSTR 1. In GSTR 2A, I cannot see a HSN code. In number of invoices, people are not mentioning HSN or SAC code. Now, for me in this situation, where you are working from home and people are not filing a GSTR 1, I have to segregate I have to find their HSN code and then only can file refund. It's not a healthy suggestion in the circular. It can be challenged because it's creating a double whammy for exporters. They're increasing the compliance burden, but not giving any benefit. Another part, we have seen discuss about Rule 36.4, where I need to comply on 20% and now 10%. Now, same thing they have brought in the refunds by circular. You are not eligible to get a refund if all the line items on which you are claiming the refund are not reflecting in GSTR 2A. I am not able to understand when 2A is not implemented, when new return is again postponed, why cannot they wait till the complete system comes into picture and then only they implement it? Now, by just bringing this one, again, my tax will be blocked. It will impact my working capital, and the current situation, it is going to create a more negative situation for all the people. So we have seen the changes which they brought, certain are beneficial, but other which they brought as a procedural and other aspects are more hitting them on negative side. The other changes which they brought is more like in the income tax and Aadhaar authentication like PAN, where last date was 31st March, now extended. Same thing now under GST. They say they will issue a certificate within 48 hours. But we have seen recently one transaction where we were helping in the state of Uttarakhand. It has taken 21 days without any reason. And now by bringing this authentication of Aadhaar plus physical verification, it's going to create a delay in getting registration. And then question will come, you did not comply within the due dates. So again, you're liable for a penalty. When they want to streamline the taxes, it should be streamlined from each and every respective point. Now what they say, physical verification is depend on if Aadhaar authentication done, not required. Even Aadhaar authentication done, but officer want to visit the premises, he can still do it. When you are again giving the discretion to the officer, we can expect it will create delay, unnecessary trouble for people, and again a non-compliance for the taxpayers. Last year one scheme came, SVLDRS, Sabka Vishwas Legal Dispute Resolution Scheme. That scheme was successful, and government told we are getting around 45,000 crore worth collection from debt. The first installment was required to be paid on 31st March. They have given the benefit here. You can pay this amount by 30th June and no interest liability will come. It's a welcome move, look into current situation, and even in certain cases, hearing is still pending. In all these cases, yes, it will help people to resolve the issue on the SVLDRS and also pay the amount without interest. But these are changes which have been brought by all the notifications and circular. Now, question comes now, we are in the month of April end, and there are number of compliances which needs to be done under GST, not only from a GSTR 1 and 3B, others are. We will just have a glimpse on what are the things you need to take care when you're doing all these compliances. We were divided into 4 parts, from a law related, compliance related, your input tax credit related, and reconciliation related. So what we recommend, you should have the book stock or the physical stock to understand any damage or destroy, then you need to reverse the credit. So GST on advance payments, if you have not done, any cross charges among your divisions. Even look into Columbia Hospital advance rolling. Some people have started doing it. I do not know whether on which basis they are doing it, but yes, the situation is still under the litigation, and we may see a relief based on the relief given by the circular clarification. any provisioning, especially for a group transaction, any domestic transaction or overseas transaction where it's a group company transaction and you are making a provision, then you need to pay the liability based on provisioning, pending your invoice raising or a payment. Otherwise, it will create an interest and penalty aspect also. Now we come to compliance beyond your written filing. You have to see an invoice serial number, which is every financial year. You need to change and update. Any debit or credit note for last year, you need to comply before September month compliance. You have to do a compliance for RCM, specifically for raising a self invoice, payment of tax, and looking into the group payment transaction also. Now we come to the ITC lead. There is a specific provision where you need to pay to your vendor within 180 days. And considering current situation, people are deferring payment. It means they need to reverse the credit and they need to pay the interest also. You need to see all the such transactions where due date is falling under April or May or June or within 180 days to your vendor. Any blocked credit, most of the people are not doing reversal of credit for any loss, destruction, theft, or provisioning. In all these cases, you need to reverse the credit. If you have not done, even for last year, last year, then you need to do it. And again, you need to do a computation of interest also. And here interest will come at 24%, not at 18%. Job work, ITC 04 or intimation, inclusion of premises of job worker, all needs to be done if you are involving any job worker in procurement side or a sales side. Someone written an article 1 year back, GST is equivalent to a reconciliation statement, which even I believe is true. Nowadays, companies are spending more time in RECO. From 1 to 3B, 3B to 1, 1 to books, 3B to books, 2A with purchase invoices, various ITC ledger of CGST, SGST, IGST, state-wise reconciliation, e-way bill to GSTR1 and 3B, your B2B and B2C reconciliation. It is an unending task on monthly basis, and yes, that has started to be taken care. So looking to our discussion, what we recommend you to do a way forward, you need to first and foremost divide your compliance where dates have been staggered, where dates has not been staggered. If you say for returns, they are given relief are conditional, but for tax payment, for TDS deduction, your release of tax invoice, issuance of e-way bill, and all other aspects, you need to comply within due dates. Whether they've given a bunching of February to 1 for Rule 36.4, we recommend you should do it monthly to avoid any excess credit claim and then liability of interest to be avoided. If you are exporter, please start having the HSN SSC code for each and every individual transaction. Only exception is supplier who are supplying to you are below 1.5 crore. If supplier who are above 1.5 crore, they are not putting a HSN code, then you need to comply with it. Any export proceeds for goods like services, you need to realize within the timeline, the 9 months or extended period of 15 months. If you are not doing the same timeline, then you need to pay this amount to government along with interest as per new rule 96B. Very important, a liquidity management study, which even I think Piyush can highlight on this point, where it is very important, not only from indirect tax, but look into all other payouts which needs to be done on the statutory payment, your vendors, banks, salaries and all. If you are not doing it, it may happen that certain payments which are statutory, you are getting the hit. In certain cases, even the vendors are putting interest clauses In all these cases, you need to have, must to have a monthly study for that. E-way bill, yes, they have given the relief only till 30th April, but we recommend you should track it from a GSTR 1 or 3B basis. Other aspect where due date is 30th June is GST audit and annual return for people above 5 crore. You need to comply before that. Even we have seen number of people still not started. I will suggest not to wait till last time, maybe to the last date. This all from our side. We can take the queries. If any query, please put in the chat box. All these queries we will take. In case we are not able to take it, we will cover into the by mail, which Piyush has referred. So one point is, what about blocking of e-way bill during transition period? It's a very good point. The 2 months non-compliance for 3B, then your e-way bill site is blocked. That continues. So irrespective of the staggered dates, for February and March, if you are not complied with, then your e-way bill site will be blocked and you cannot raise any intrastate, interstate, or inbound or outbound e-way bills. Whether IGST is applicable on receipt of export advance and they don't have LUT, being the extension has been provided, now you can use your LUT of previous year for all the exports we are doing in this year. So if you are doing this and you're filing your LUT by 30th June for 2021, then you no need to pay IGST on exports. Exports previously also no LUT. In that case, you have to pay. I will request you to put a request with the delaying continuation delay and file it immediately. Else, your all the exports which you've done for last year, this year, you will be liable to pay GST, and even they can block your returns. It can be made through LUT or bond, all the options provided under the GST law. But that's all the query. Any other query, or else we can conclude our session. One more query. Can rebate be claimed by STPI if it claims IGST exemption notification earlier? As I told, Rule 96 sub Rule 10 is specifically debarring STPI to file the rebate claim. Now the explanation is telling you no need to take benefit completely on your import procurements under as a STPI. Don't pay BCD, but pay IGST on such procurement. In that case, it will be assumed you are not claiming any benefit in this notification, and then you can file rebate. Other query is services provided from April 19 to March 20, but bill raised on April 20. When can we claim RCM? So in case you are getting a bill now in the month of April, then you need to see a transaction with a reverse charge on import or on the domestic, and accordingly you need to pay liability. One more query. In case of wrong mention of wrong invoice number or invoice date in GSTR 1 for refund of GOD supply, will that be a problem? It's a procedural and they are condoning it in most of the cases. Rule 36 prescribes 10% rule for invoices reflecting 2A up to due date of filing return under section 37(1) only. So is it necessary to download 2A on due date of GST-1? No such restriction is there, but yes, compliance of 36(4) needs to be done on monthly basis. Only relaxation given is of February to August. So one more query there, refunds are getting it still on this issue. Can they stop the refund? I will not able to comment because on the discretion of officer. So some certain non-compliance, whether to condone or not, it is not given the law. They have given only which needs to be complied with. For a certain part they are condoning or not, all discretion of the officer. So thanks. I think we have taken all the queries.
So yeah, I think thanks a lot, Vineet, for taking out time. It was a good session, and I think there are some more questions coming in. If guys, any of you have any more questions, there is a mail ID on the screen. You can drop in, and we can help Vineet. So see you guys on Saturday with the another topic on valuation and bankruptcy, which is also one of the important themes which we are covering as a part of our COVID series. So thanks a lot everyone for joining in, and have a nice day. Vineet, would you like to just answer this last question and then we can
Yeah, I
close
think
the session?
what query they want to put it. Earlier they were claiming the IGST exemption. So they were barred from claiming repeat